just met Jane. And let me begin by thanking Pastor Whitfield for giving my entire speech. So I'm going to go home, and let me also thank Pat Sass. Pat is the chairwoman of the Black Hawk City Democratic Committee, and she has endorsed our campaign, and I appreciate that, Pat, very much. Love you too. You know, I don't know how many of you know Cornel West. You know Cornel West? And Dr. West has been running around the state with us, and he gives an oratory that the likes of which is hard to compete with. They talked about a love train of a campaign yesterday. Love train of a campaign. So we love you all. And let me begin by saying this. Oh, thank you. Okay.
Bernie, you're my hero.
Oh. All right. Let me begin by thanking the people of Iowa. The caucus, in case some of you have forgotten, is tomorrow night. Don't forget. And Jane and I and my staff have been all over this very, very beautiful state for the last 9 months. And I just want to very sincerely thank the people of this beautiful state for their hospitality, for their generosity, and for their kindness. It has been a pleasure and an honor to campaign in this great state. So thank you all very much for that. As some of you know, when we began our campaign 9 months ago, we had no money, we had virtually no political organization, and we had almost no name recognition outside of Vermont and maybe a few other New England states. In fact, a poll was done by the Des Moines Register 8 months ago, which had us trailing Secretary Clinton by 41 points. Yesterday, there was a poll by that same newspaper that had us down by 3 points. We have made some progress in the last 9 months. And when we talk about political organization, I am extremely proud and grateful that we have some 15,000 volunteers here in Iowa alone. Thank you all. And many of them are working very long hours, and I appreciate very much all that they are doing. And on top of that, we have put together an organization now which has hundreds of thousands of volunteers in every state of this country. And let me say something that all of you know, and that is, it's not great news, but all of you know it to be true that today in the United States, if you're going to run for president, you need to raise an obscene amount of money. That is sad but true, and we're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars, if not more than $1 billion. At the beginning of our campaign, many of the pundits said, well, you know, Bernie, your hair is really nice, and we think you'll make a great presidential candidate. You comb your hair, great, and your GQ outfit will certainly win you millions of votes. But how are you going to raise the money? How are you going to raise the money to compete effectively? And that is a very legitimate question. Well, we thought about it for about 1/10 of a second, and we decided that we were not going to have a super PAC. And the reason for that is not complicated. We do not represent the interest of Wall Street, corporate America, the drug companies, millionaires and billionaires. We don't represent their interest. We don't want their money. So we were going to do it we decided to do it without a super PAC. Now, yesterday, my opponent announced that she had raised some $45 million for her super PAC. We made the announcement, of course, that we had raised $0 from our super PAC. But here's what we had also announced, and it is something that I think I never would have believed possible when we began this campaign. And when we said we weren't going to have a super PAC and we needed to raise money, we just reached out to middle-class working families, and we said, if you want real change in this country, if you want to be part of a political revolution, we need your help. And this is what has happened in the last 9 months, which, honest to God, is beyond my wildest imagination. In the last 9 months, we have received 3.2 million individual contributions. That is more individual contributions than any candidate in the history of the United States up until this point in a campaign. And while some candidates boast about how much money they raise at super PAC events, let me tell you what I am boasting about and what I am very proud of. Our average contribution is $27. In other words, to paraphrase Abraham Lincoln, this is a campaign of the people, by the people, and for the people. And what makes this campaign different than other campaigns, it's not just our progressive agenda, the most progressive agenda obviously out there, but more significantly, I think, is what I am telling you and telling everybody in America. And that is that no president, not Bernie Sanders or anybody else, can do it alone. That in fact, if we are to bring about the changes that most of us want, if we are to rebuild a disappearing middle class, if we are to deal with climate change and women's rights and all of the important issues that are out there, the only way that happens is when millions of people stand up, come together, and demand that our government starts working for all of us, not just the 1%. Now, when we say that, we kind of get the establishment a little bit nervous. We get Wall Street a little bit nervous. We get the political establishment a little bit nervous. We get the media establishment a little bit nervous, because they are saying, what's going on in America where ordinary Americans, the working class, the middle class, are demanding to change the course of our country? Who do they think they are? Don't they know that it is the billionaire class and corporate America and Wall Street who are supposed to run this country? And what we are saying is enough is enough. You've had your day. Now it is our turn. Now, there are folks out there during the campaign who say a whole lot of things. You know, I've seen ads on television that suggest that Bernie Sanders is trying to dismantle health care in America. Dismantle health care? I've spent my life fighting for universal health care for every man, woman, and child. There's an ad out there saying I'm attacking Planned Parenthood. I've got a 100% lifetime voting record for Planned Parenthood. I want to expand Planned Parenthood funding. We're not attacking Planned Parenthood. We're going to make them stronger. There are those who say, you know, we are protecting the gun lobby. Some protection. I got a D- voting record from the NRA. And we're going to do everything we can to end gun violence in the United States. Then there's another argument that's going around, and that is that, well, you know, Bernie's a nice guy, but you know what? He and his supporters, well, we just can't win a national election. How are we going to beat the Republicans? How are we going to make sure that some right-wing Republican doesn't get into the White House? So let me give you a few reasons as to why we will, in fact, defeat any right-wing Republican that the Republican Party puts up. And by the way, that means all of them, because they're all right-wing. So we can generalize that statement. Bernie Sanders can't win a national election. Well, a recent NBC poll told us that Hillary Clinton did very well. She was beating Donald Trump by 10 points. We were beating him by 15 points. Another poll had her up by 7. That's good. We were ahead by 13. Now, Iowa, this beautiful state of Iowa, is important not only because it is the first caucus state, but you are a battleground state. Sometimes Democrats win, too often Republicans win. Here in Iowa, Secretary Clinton was defeating Donald Trump by 8 points. That's good. We were defeating him by 13 points. In New Hampshire, the secretary was defeating Trump by 1 point. Not bad. We were defeating him by 19 points. In Wisconsin, she was defeating him by 9 points. We were beating him by 18 points. Now, polls are polls. Polls go up, polls go down. You know, some polls are good, some polls are not good. But here is the point. The point is that I think, frankly, across America, in terms of taking on the Republican candidate, we have more support than Secretary Clinton. And it's not only these polls. What everybody here knows is Republicans win elections when the American people are demoralized and when they do not come out to vote. Republicans love low voter turnouts, and that is why Republican governors all over this country are trying to suppress the vote. Nobody votes, that is great, because then big money will be able to carry the day. We win when large numbers of people come out to vote. We win when working people and young people and low-income people and elderly people go to the polls. And I think it is fair to say that any objective assessment of Secretary Clinton's campaign and my campaign, and she has some really good people, so I'm not knocking them, but I think the excitement and the energy is with our campaign. And what that means is that in November, I believe that our message and our energy will drive a very large voter turnout, which will mean not only that we retain the White House, we regain the Senate, we win governor's chairs all over this country. Now, why is our campaign doing so well? Why did we come from 41 points down here in Iowa to a virtual tie and I'll tell you why. Very radical concept. We are telling the American people the truth. Now, I know that's a pretty radical idea, but what the heck? You only go around once, you may as well tell the truth. And what is the truth? Nothing that I'm proud of, nothing that I'm happy to tell you. But what I've believed a long, long time ago, for a long time, is you don't make progress unless you have the courage to look reality in the eye. If you sweep the problems under the rug, they ain't going to get better. So what are the issues? The issue is that we are living today in a rigged economy. What does that mean? It means that the middle class continues to decline. It means that we have 47 million people living in poverty. And it means that almost all of the new income and wealth generated today is going to the top 1%. It means that you pay to bail out Wall Street, and then Wall Street provides their CEOs with huge compensation packages while you cannot afford to send your kids to college. It means that in Vermont and in Iowa and all over this country, we have people who are working not one job, they're working 2 jobs, they're working 3 jobs, just trying to cobble together some income and some health care. And it means that while our people in America work the longest hours of any people in the industrialized world, while it means that mom is working and dad is working and the kids are working, while it means that marriages are struggling because of the stress of lack of money, parents are not spending enough time with their kids. And in the midst of all of that reality, 58% of all new income is going to the top 1%. What a rigged economy means is that we have more inequality in America today than at any time since 1928. And it is worse here now than almost any major country on earth. What that means is that the top 1/10 of 1%, not 1%, 1/10 of 1% now owns almost as much wealth as the bottom 90%. What that means is that the 20 wealthiest people in this country now own more wealth than the bottom 150 million Americans, half our population. What that means is that one family in America, the Walton family of Walmart, one family owns more wealth than the bottom 40% of the American people. That, my friends, is a rigged economy. And here is a radical idea. You want to hear a radical idea? This looks like a radical group of people. This looks like a group of people ready to go to the barricades. All right, what about creating an economy that works for working families and not just a handful of wealthy campaign contributors? And when we talk about why it is that so many people are struggling in this country, it has everything to do with the fact that wages in America are just too low. You can do the arithmetic as well as I can. Multiply $8 an hour by 40 hours a week, by 52 weeks of the year, and you end up with a sum of money that no person in America can live on with dignity. Okay, one second. That is why, at a time when the minimum wage in this country is $7.25, the federal minimum wage, we have got to recognize that as a starvation wage. We have got to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour over the next several years. It is not a radical idea to suggest that if somebody works 40 hours a week, that person should not be living in poverty. That's not a radical idea. That is an American idea. And by the way, when we talk about fair wages, I would hope that every man in this room will stand with the women to end the disgrace of women making 79 cents on the dollar compared to men. Together, we are going to provide pay equity for women workers, because the only reason that women are paid so low is because of old-fashioned sexism, and together we are going to change that. Once a month, there is an official report coming out of the federal government, actually a number of reports, dealing with unemployment. The issue that you see, the report that you see on the front pages of your paper, say that unemployment in America is 5%. Anybody believe that? No. You're right. You're right. Real unemployment, including those people who have given up looking for work or are working part-time, is close to 10%. Furthermore, and here is something that we do not talk enough about as a nation, and we have got to put this issue right up there on the agenda. Youth unemployment in America, real youth unemployment for white kids between 17 and 20, high school graduates, 33%. Latino kids, 36%. African American kids, 51%. That is intolerable. That is unacceptable. And if anybody here thinks there is not a direct correlation between that outrageously high level of youth unemployment and another tragedy in America, that is, we in the wealthiest country in the history of the world, we have more people in jail than any other country on earth. We have 2.2 million people in jail. We are spending $80 billion a year locking people up. Now, you want another radical idea this morning? Now, I know that's been tough. I'm giving you one. You ready for the second radical idea? All right. Here it is. Here it is. How about investing in jobs and education for our kids rather than jails and incarceration? Reality is, it costs more to lock up a kid than send them to the University of Iowa. I'd rather send them to the University of Iowa. Or Iowa State, or any of your other great universities. I don't want to get myself in trouble here. And if he wants, he can even go to the University of Vermont. That's okay too. I now want to touch on another issue. Now, I know I will shock all of you to suggest that in politics today, there is occasionally a bit of hypocrisy. All right, please recover. Take a deep breath. It's okay. Well, that's true. Now, in this state right now, you got a whole lot of Republican candidates for president. You can't get a cup of coffee, I'm sure, without running into one of them. Okay? And if you listen to them closely, they talk about Republican family values. You ever hear them talk about family values? But I want everybody here to know exactly what they mean by family values. What they mean is that no woman in this room, in this state, in this country, should have the right to control her own body. I disagree. They believe we should defund Planned Parenthood. I believe we should expand funding for Planned Parenthood. They believe our gay brothers and sisters who have struggled so many years for dignity, they believe that gay people should not be able to get married. I disagree. Now, here is the ultimate in hypocrisy. My Republican colleagues run all over Iowa and all over the country telling the people how much they hate government. They're going to cut Social Security. They're going to cut Medicare, Medicaid, do away with the EPA. They hate the government. They want to get the government, that terrible government, out of your lives. Except when it comes to a very personal choice that women have to make. And in that case, they love the government and want the government to make that decision for every woman in America. That is hypocrisy. Now, Jane and I have been married for 27 years. We have 4 kids and 7 beautiful grandchildren. We believe in family and family values, but our values are a little bit different than the Republicans. And when I talk about family values, I talk about ending the international embarrassment in which this country, our great country, is the only major nation on earth that does not guarantee paid family and medical leave. Not only are we the only major country, we're one of the very, very few countries, even poor countries do it. And what that means in reality is that today here in Iowa, Vermont, or all over this country, women are given birth. But if that woman is low income or working class, there is a real likelihood that she will be forced to separate herself from a beautiful new baby because she has to go back to work and earn enough money to take care of her family. That should not be happening in America, and that is why I am strongly supporting legislation that will provide 3 months of paid family and medical leave. And when we talk about our economy, when we talk about real unemployment being close to 10%, youth unemployment off the charts, to me it is a no-brainer to say that the federal government must create a massive federal jobs program to put our people back to work. We should be hiring teachers, not firing teachers. We should be creating the best child care system in the world. We should be hiring well-paid, well-trained people to take care of the youngest Americans. And by the way, when our infrastructure, our roads and our bridges and our water systems and our wastewater plants and our rail system needs an enormous amount of work, a $1 trillion investment will create 13 million jobs. Let's do it. And we're going to pay for that $1 trillion investment by ending an outrageous loophole that allows billion-dollar corporations to put their money in the Cayman Islands, Bermuda, and other tax havens, and in a given year pay 0 in federal income taxes. We're going to end that, invest it. Now, when I talk about a rigged economy, and I talk about a corrupt campaign finance system, and when I talk about a broken criminal justice system, there is one story that I can tell you which encompasses all of those elements of what is happening in America today. Some of you may have noticed that a couple of weeks ago, Goldman Sachs, one of the large financial institutions on Wall Street, agreed to a $5 billion settlement with the United States government. $5 billion. And they were one of many banks over the last year or so that has reached huge settlements with the federal government. The reason they reached the settlement is that they were engaged in illegal activity. They were defrauding investors by selling worthless packages of subprime mortgage loans. All right? So they were cheating the American people. They reached a settlement with the government for $5 billion. That's point number one. Point number two, when you talk about political power in America, you're talking about Wall Street that spent billions of dollars to get deregulated. You're talking about Goldman Sachs, the same company that over the last 25 years has managed to get 2 secretaries of the Treasury. Revolving door. You all know what a revolving door is? You go from Wall Street to government back to Wall Street. They had 2 secretaries of the Treasury, one under a Democratic administration, one under a Republican administration, and dozens of other high-level political appointees. Point number 2. Point number 3, the same Goldman Sachs, along with other Wall Street firms, makes huge campaign contributions in order to protect themselves, provides very generous speaker fees. Point number 4, maybe the most important and interesting point of all. When we talk about why the American people are angry and why they are demoralized and why they see a system in which the rich get richer and almost everybody else gets poorer, and why they see a system of justice which is basically unfair. Today, if some kid in Iowa or in Vermont gets picked up with marijuana, that kid will have a police record for the rest of his life. Goldman Sachs just reached a $5 billion settlement for cheating and ripping off the American people. Goldman Sachs is part of a group of Wall Street companies that helped destroy the American economy, bring us the worst recession since the Great Depression. Millions of people lost their jobs, their homes, and their life savings. Goldman Sachs paid a $5 billion settlement, but no executive on Wall Street has yet been prosecuted, has yet been charged with a crime, yet has a police record. So I think, and that is why the American people are angry. What justice means is that justice applies equally to all. That's what America's about. You're rich and you're powerful, you break the law, you pay a price. You're poor, you break the law, you pay a price. But everybody understands we have a two-tier, not only do we have a two-tier economy, not only do we have a two-tier campaign finance system, we have a two-tier criminal justice system. So if elected president, you know what? We're going to bring back justice to our justice system. And what we're also going to do is overturn this disastrous Citizens United Supreme Court decision. I may be an old-fashioned guy, but I believe that democracy is one person, one vote, not billionaires buying elections. And when you have a handful of billionaires, people like the Koch brothers and a few of their billionaire friends, in this campaign, spending some $900 million to elect candidates who will represent the interests of the rich and the powerful. When you have those handful of people spending more money on a campaign than either the Democratic or the Republican parties, my friends, that is not democracy, that is oligarchy, and we are going to change that. If our country is to succeed economically and in other ways, we need the best educated population on earth. It makes no sense to me that hundreds of thousands of bright young people who are qualified today cannot get a college education, and others who are not academically inclined cannot get the training they need to be plumbers or carpenters or electricians. And that is why I believe that in the year 2016, when we talk about public education, it can no longer be just first grade through 12th grade. It must include college and post-secondary education. That is why I believe that public colleges and universities should be tuition free. Second point with regard to higher education. Thank you, young lady jumping up and down now. Just getting to that one right now. How many people in this room are dealing with student debt? Whoa, 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 that's a lot of people. You know, as I go around this state, there is no meeting, none, that I go to where people are not raising their hands big time in response to that question. Just the other day, a couple of days ago, in Iowa, young man, 20 years of age. He said, I went to college for 2 years, dropped out, $60,000 in debt. Talked to another young man, 29 years of age, married, 2 kids, works in sustainable energy, $90,000 in debt. He's paying over 50% of his limited income in student debt. Talked to a guy in Nevada last month, 55 years of age. He's been paying off his student debt for 25 years. He is more in debt today than he was when he began.
What about our voluntary armed services and those kids who don't have an option other than?
Okay, very good. Hang on to that one for a minute, all right? And I talked to a woman in New Hampshire, and this is what she said. She said, yeah, I'm not only paying my daughter's student debt, I am continue to pay my own student debt, paying herself and for her daughter. We want the best educated workforce in the world. We should not punish people for trying to get the education they need. That is pretty crazy. And that is why I believe we need to be able to tell people with student debt they can refinance their loans at the lowest interest rates they can find. Now, right now, we have people with student debt paying 6, 8, 10% interest rates. You can refinance your home at 3 or 4%. That does not make sense to me. If we allow people to refinance at the lowest interest rates they can find, we will be able to cut student debt in this country very, very significantly. And that's what we should do. Now, people say, you know, that sounds, Bernie, you're like Santa Claus. You keep giving away free stuff. It's very nice of you. How are you going to pay for it? And this is really what differentiates our campaign from other campaigns. If everybody in America understands that all of our people, regardless of income, should get the best education and the most education they need, no one argues with that. No one, I think, argues that people should not be paying off student debt for 10, 20, 30 years. That's pretty crazy. Well, how are we going to deal with that? How are we going to pay for that? It's an expensive proposition. Lower student debt, free tuition, public colleges and universities. Here's how we do it. We are going to impose a tax on Wall Street speculation. When Wall Street crashed, they went to the middle class for a bailout. Now it is Wall Street's time to help the middle class of this country. As adults, as parents, and as grandparents, in my view, we have a moral responsibility to leave this planet to our children and grandchildren in a way that is habitable. I sit on both the Senate Environmental Committee and the Energy Committee, and let me tell you, I have talked to scientists all over the world. The debate is over. Climate change is real. It is caused by human activity. It is already causing devastating problems in America and throughout the world. In my view, what the next president of the United States should be doing is working with Russia, with China, with India, with countries all over the world to take on the fossil fuel industry, transform our energy system away from fossil fuel to energy efficiency and sustainable energy. This is not some abstract academic debate. We're talking about the future of this planet. And it grieves me, and I want you to think about this for a moment. You have a Republican Party without a presidential candidate who is prepared to come before you and say, climate change is real and it's a serious problem. We got to do something about it. Why is that? Why is not one Republican candidate prepared to say that? And I'll tell you the answer. The answer gets back to this issue of campaign financing. If a Republican candidate said what I just said to you, on that day, the Koch brothers, ExxonMobil, the coal companies would cut funding to those candidates. So I say to my Republican colleagues, worry about your kids and your grandchildren and future generations. Worry about them and not your campaign contributions. Do the right thing. And by the way, let me thank and applaud the people of Iowa for being leaders in this country in the movement towards sustainable energy. Your work in terms of wind and biofuels is extraordinary. Thank you for the model you're setting for America. What this campaign is about is thinking big, is understanding that we are the wealthiest country in the history of the world. If we were a poor country, we would have a different conversation. We're the richest country in the history of the world. Most people don't know that because they're working 2 or 3 jobs, and almost all new income and wealth is going to the top 1%. But that is a fact. We are the wealthiest country in the history of the world. I am a member of the Health Education Labor Committee that helped pass the Affordable Care Act. And I believe the Affordable Care Act has done a lot of good things for the people in our country. It has ended this obscenity called pre-existing conditions. It has added some 17 million people into the ranks of the insured. It has done away with discrimination against women in terms of how much they have to pay for health insurance and other things. It's done some good things. But, and here is a big but, today, I didn't mean it that way. Let me rephrase that point. And that is that there is one country, one major country, wealthy country on earth, that does not guarantee health care to all people as a right. So the Affordable Care Act has made progress. We should all be proud of that. I am. But today, 29 million Americans still have zero health insurance, and many of you are underinsured with high deductibles and high copayments. Anybody here with a high deductible? All right, a lot of people. All right. And what that means is if you got a $5,000 deductible, $10,000, whatever it may be, if you don't have much money, you hesitate going to the doctor. And if you don't go to the doctor when you're sick, you know what happens? You get sicker. And let me tell you something which is no laughing matter. I have talked to doctors in my state and all over this country, and what they say is that people walk into their offices much, much sicker than they should be. And the doctor says, why didn't you come in here 6 months ago when you first felt your symptom? And then people say, well, I didn't have any insurance, or I can't afford the deductible. Some of those people die. In fact, thousands of Americans die every year because they don't go to the doctor when they should. And others become much sicker than they should have. They end up in the emergency room or they end up in the hospital with great suffering and great cost to the system. Now, I have been criticized for saying this. So be it. Let me say it again. I believe that health care in America should be a right, not a privilege. And I do not understand, I just do not understand how it could be that Great Britain, France, Germany, Holland, Scandinavia, Canada, every major country on earth guarantees health care to all of their people. And guess what else? Not only do they guarantee health care to all of their people, they spend significantly less per person on health care. We spend almost 3 times per person on health care compared to the British. We spend 50% more than the French. We spend way more than the Canadians, who provide health care to all people as a right. And by the way, we also pay, by far, the highest cost for prescription drugs in the world. All right? At a time when 1 out of 5 Americans cannot afford to fill the prescription drug, the prescription their doctors write, the 3 major drug companies in this country last year made $45 billion in profit. In other words, they are ripping off the American people. They could double the price of your medicine tomorrow. There is no legislation against it. Trust me, if I am elected President of the United States, there will be legislation dealing with that issue. Here's another radical idea. Today in Iowa, and I've met some of these people, in Vermont, all over this country, we got seniors and disabled veterans who are trying to get by on $11,000, $12,000, $13,000 a year. And you know what? When you are old, and when you are hurting, and when you have health problems, you cannot get by on $12,000 or $13,000 a year. You can't do it. And what that means is that when it gets cold, you don't turn up the thermostat. What it means is you divide your medicine, your prescription pill, in half because you can't afford to buy the medicine that you need. It means that you may not buy the food that you need to stay healthy. That is the reality for millions of people in this country today. I believe that not only should we vigorously oppose, and I've led the opposition in the Senate, to Republican efforts to cut Social Security, we should be expanding Social Security benefits. In 2008, Barack Obama said, and I agree with him, that we should lift the cap on taxable income. You know what that is? Right now, somebody makes $5 million a year, somebody makes $118,000 a year. They are both contributing the same amount into the Social Security Trust Fund because there is a cap at about $118,000 now. Lift that cap, start at $250,000. The top 1.5% of American taxpayers. We can extend Social Security for 50 years and increase benefits for people living on less than $16,000 a year by $1,300 a year. That's what I intend to do. Let me just say this. This campaign is a unique campaign, not just, as I mentioned earlier, that we have the most progressive agenda. It is a unique campaign because it understands that the only way we make real change in this country is when we come together and demand it. There are folks out there, the Donald Trumps and others, who want to divide us up. They want to divide us up as to whether we're Latino, or whether we were born in this country or not born in this country, whether we're Muslim or not. But I believe our job is not to divide the American people up. I believe our job is to bring the American people together. And if we do that, black and white and Latino, Asian American, gay and straight, man and woman, people born in this country, people born outside of this country, when we stand together and when we have the courage to think big, and when we have the courage to take on some very, very powerful special interests who today have it all. Their greed is destroying our economy. When we stand together and we say to those people, you know, you can't have it all. That's not what America is about. When we do that, there is nothing, nothing, nothing that we cannot accomplish. That is what this campaign is about. Now, on Monday night, there will be, as all of you know, the Democratic caucuses. And not only will the entire country be looking at Iowa, actually much of the world will be looking at Iowa. And what they will be looking at is not just to see who wins the caucus. Does Hillary Clinton win it? Bernie Sanders win it? Who wins it? What they will really be looking at is to see whether or not Iowa is prepared to move this country away from establishment politics and establishment economics and move us in a very, very different direction. Monday night could be an historic night for this country. We can make history. I urge you all to come out to caucus, and today I ask for your support. Thank you all very much.